The Council of Ministers has recommended pardon to Resham Chaudhary, who is serving life imprisonment in the case related to the Kantipur massacre. The Supreme Court had earlier upheld the life imprisonment verdict of lower courts, which had held Chaudhary as the mastermind behind the heinous attack. Article 276 of the Constitution states that the President has the right to pardon, alter or reduce a verdict announced by the court. However, Section 4 of Article 159 might pose an obstacle to Resham's pardon, as it states that general amnesty cannot be given to culprits accused of murder or other heinous crimes. Good evening, I'm Abhyuday Shrestha, and these are the headlines of the hour. Economic survey for the current fiscal year publicized. Economic growth to be limited to 2.16%. Agriculture sector could have a better growth. The Cabinet recommends the President to provide amnesty to Resham Chaudhary, who is serving life term for Kantipur massacre. Prime Minister Dahal consults leaders for his upcoming India visit. At least 11 people from a nomadic tribe, including a 4-year-old boy, killed in an avalanche in northern Pakistan. 25 people injured as a rescue operation is ongoing. And India lift Kava Women's Volleyball Championship. Demolished Kazakhstan in straight sets. Nepal finished third with a 3-1 win against Uzbekistan. Out of the 44 corporations under government investment, only 25 are in profit. Speaking at today's meeting of the House of Representatives, Finance Minister Prakash Charan Mahat, while making public the financial survey for the current fiscal year and the report of the public corporations, said that more than half of the corporations are suffering losses. Minister Mahat stated that the government has received profit of only 1% of its investment. The total consumption, which was 94.2% of the gross domestic product in the previous fiscal year, is estimated to be 93.6% in the current fiscal year. During this period, the saving is estimated to be only 6.4% of the GDP. Likewise, investment is projected to lower by 5% to remain at 1,754.16 billion rupees. Investment ratio, which was at 37.4% in the previous fiscal year, is estimated to lower to 32.6%. It has been mentioned in the economic survey that the rate of expense in all 3 tiers of government has been increasing. The unified expense has gone up to 9.4% to reach 1,490 billion rupees. The current expenditure is at 57.6%, capital expense is at 32.9%, while the financial expense is at 9.5%. The revenue of the federal government has dropped by 14% to remain at 582 billion rupees. During this period, the federal revenue has been limited to 15.3% or 508 billion rupees. Only 75% of targeted amount of the value-added tax and excess tax have been collected. The expenses of the federal government is 223 billion rupees, more than the amount received from revenue and foreign aid. The government has recommended to grant amnesty to Resham Chaudhary, who is currently serving life sentence for his involvement in the Kantipur massacre. The meeting of the Council of Ministers held at Singhdarbar today decided to send a recommendation to President Ramchandra Paudel for granting amnesty to Chaudhary. Minister for Communications and Information Technology Rekha Sharma informed that the decision was taken following the law as suggested by experts. The cabinet meeting also decided to appoint Anita Dhungana of Lamjung as a member of the National Planning Commission. The upcoming budget and the Prime Minister's visit to India were also discussed at today's cabinet meeting. Minister Sharma informed that a small team consisting of only required members will travel to India along with the Prime Minister. Prime Minister Pushpakamal Dahal will be going on a 4-day visit to India this Wednesday on 31st of May. Premier Dahal held consultations today with former Prime Ministers, former foreign ministers, leaders of political parties and diplomats regarding his preparations for the upcoming India visit. Prime Minister Dahal held discussions with former Prime Ministers Sher Bahadur Deuba, KP Sharma Oli, Jalanath Khanal and Baburam Bhattrai today. Premier Dahal also held talks with Rashtriya Prajantra Party leader Prakash Chandra Lohani, लोकतान्त्रिक समाजवादी पार्टी चेयरपर्सन महन्त ठाकुर, राष्ट्रिय स्वतन्त्र पार्टी चेयर रवि लामिछाने, चेयरपर्सन of नागरिक उन्मुक्ति पार्टी रञ्जिता श्रेष्ठ, आम जनता पार्टी चेयर प्रभु शाह, Nepal Workers Peasants Party leader Prem Suwal, among other political leaders, I beg your pardon. The House meeting today has nominated 12 lawmakers for the Parliamentary Hearing Committee. Ramesh Lekhak, Ishwari Nyopane, Jivan Pariyar and Gyanendra Bahadur Karki represent Nepali Congress in the Parliamentary Hearing Committee. Likewise, CPN-UML is represented by Padam Giri, Mahesh Kumar Gartola, Leela Nath Shrestha and Ishwari GM. Meanwhile, Janardhan Sharma from CPN Maoist Center, Rashtriya Swatantra Party's Dol Prasad Aryal, Rashtriya Prajantra Party's Pashupati Shamsher Rana and Janata Samajwadi's Prakash Adhikari are the other members of the committee. The nominations were endorsed by a majority at the Parliament today. The 15-member committee already has Ramesh Jung Raemaji, representing Nepali Congress from the National Assembly, CPN-UML's Devendra Dahal and CPN Maoist Center's Jag Prasad Sharma. It's time now for our segment Public Pulse, where you text us with your opinion.
Public Pulse.
Here's the question. What could be the reason for the dilly-dallying in the investigations carried out by the CIAA? Your options are A, political influence, B, questionable capabilities, and C, lack of human resources. The voting is on. Type NEWS, select your option A, B, or C, and send it to 34001 to share your opinion with us. The budget session has kicked off in the Koshi Province Assembly. Majority of the Province Assembly members speaking at the Assembly meeting drew the government's attention to immediately hold talks with the protesting side that has been against naming the province as Koshi. They said that the situation could intensify if the government doesn't form a talks team to hold discussions with the protesting side. After the protesters entered the restricted area in an effort to encircle the province assembly, police resorted to blank fire, water cannon, tear gas and baton charge to disperse the crowd. The clash with the police took place after the protesters crossed the restricted area at Biratnagar's Devkota Chowk. It's time now for the international updates. At least 11 people from a nomadic tribe, including a 4-year-old boy, have been killed in an avalanche in northern Pakistan. The snow struck as the group crossed a mountainous area in the Shontner Pass with their goat herds. A further 25 people have been injured and a rescue operation is ongoing. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif expressed grief over the deaths and said incidents such as avalanches were increasing due to climate change. The avalanche took place in early hours yesterday in part of the pass that bridges the Astor district of the Gilgit-Baltistan region to neighboring Azad Kashmir in Pakistan-administered Kashmir. 4 women and a 4-year-old boy were among those who died. Rescue teams have faced challenges in reaching the area due to its remote location and difficult terrain. Troops have been helping local officials with the rescue operation and 2 military helicopters were scrambled. According to witnesses, local residents also joined the effort to rescue people trapped under the snow. Pakistan's northern area are vulnerable to climate change and have been experiencing frequent extreme weather events. The northern region is sometimes referred to as part of the third pole because it contains more glacial ice than anywhere in the world outside of the polar regions. Some of these immense glaciers are already melting due to climate change, creating more than 3,000 lakes. Just last year, the country saw devastating floods that killed more than 1,700 people. U.S. President Joe Biden and top congressional Republican Kevin McCarthy reached a tentative deal to suspend the federal government's $31.4 trillion debt ceiling yesterday evening, ending a months-long stalemate. However, the deal was announced without any celebration in terms that reflected the bitter tenor of the negotiations and the difficult path it has to pass through Congress before the United States runs out of money to pay its debts in early June. The deal would suspend the debt limit through January of 2025 while capping spending in the 2024 and 2025 budgets, claw back unused COVID funds, speed up the permitting process for some energy projects, and includes some extra work requirements for food aid programs for poor Americans. After months of back and forth, the tentative agreement came together in a flurry of calls. Biden and McCarthy held a 90-minute phone call earlier yesterday evening to discuss the deal. McCarthy briefed his members later in the evening, and the White House and the House leader spoke afterward. Biden and McCarthy have to carefully thread the needle in finding a compromise that can clear the House with a 222 to 213 Republican majority and Senate with a 51 to 49 Democratic majority, meaning it will need bipartisan support before the president can sign it. One of Hong Kong's biggest Democratic parties yesterday said it would disband after a vote by its party members, dealing another blow to the city's already beleaguered Democratic opposition under pressure from China. In recent years, Hong Kong's opposition has been hit by a China-imposed national security law and overhaul of the electoral system that has largely sidelined Democrats from local politics. Alan Leong, one of the Civic Party's founding members and the current chairman, told journalists that 30 of 31 members had voted to wind up the party, with only one abstaining. The Civic Party, founded in 2006, had been a major democratic force in the financial hub that returned from British to Chinese rule in 1997, alongside the Democratic Party, performing strongly in local, legislative and district polls. The party was known for representing professionals in Hong Kong, including lawyers, accountants and scholars, and was considered a more moderate democratic voice that appealed to the city's large ranks of middle-class voters. China's imposition of a sweeping national security law in Hong Kong in 2020, however, saw a number of its members arrested, including former lawmakers Alvin Yeung and Jeremy Tam. Yeung and Tam have been detained for over 2 years and denied bail in an ongoing national security case, while another senior member, Margaret Ng, was convicted of unlawful assembly. To exile. Following on the heels of the national security law, China in 2021 revamped Hong Kong's electoral system, further reducing democratic representation while introducing a mechanism to vet politicians' loyalty to Beijing. Hong Kong and Chinese authorities described the electoral revamp as a progressive democratic step to ensure only pro-China patriots govern Hong Kong. China's first domestically produced passenger jet has taken off on its maiden commercial flight. State TV showed the C919 rising into the skies above Shanghai, heading to the capital Beijing early today. It was built by the Commercial Aviation Corporation of China in the hope of breaking the dominance of Airbus and Boeing's single-aisle jets. But the 164-seater still relies heavily on Western components, including engines and avionics. Its first commercial flight from Shanghai to Beijing with more than 130 passengers was completed in just under 3 hours. The aircraft is scheduled to fly back to the coastal city. State-backed China Eastern Airline has ordered 5 planes. COMAC, which plans to produce 150 planes annually in 5 years' time, says it has already secured more than 1,200 orders for the C919. Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India today inaugurated the new Parliament building and installed a historic sculpture, Sengol, near the Lok Sabha Speaker's chair. A special worship and a multi-faith prayer were held on the occasion. He also unveiled a commemorative plaque for the new building. Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla and Adinam Sears were present at the event. The Sears handed over the Sengol to Prime Minister Modi, who walked into the new Parliament building and installed it. Built in front of the colonial-era parliament, the new four-story building, built at an estimate cost of 9.7 billion Indian rupees, has increased seating capacity. The Lok Sabha chamber, which will seat the lower house of the parliament, is designed in the likeness of a peacock, India's national bird. The Rajya Sabha chamber, which will seat the lower house, resembles the lotus, India's national flower. Last Wednesday, 19 parties, including the main opposition, Congress, announced their collective decision to boycott the inauguration ceremony. Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge and party leader Rahul Gandhi said that the building should have been inaugurated by President Draupadi Murmu, the parliament's highest constitutional authority. Congress MP Jairam Ramesh also criticized the government's decision to hold the event on the birth anniversary of the man Savarkar, who opposed Mahatma Gandhi vehemently all his life. Head of the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, on Saturday called for an immediate ceasefire between both sides of the ongoing conflict in Sudan to create conditions for humanitarian access to conflict-afflicted areas. Humanitarian aid agencies now stand ready to provide assistance to the people of Sudan, but the real solution lies in the hands of both sides in the conflict. Grandi further urged the two sides to act in the interests of the country and the people in a bid to ease the humanitarian disaster triggered by the conflict. The deadly unrest broke out on 15th of April in Sudan's capital and adjoining cities. The crisis stems from a disagreement over the integration of a paramilitary group called the Rapid Support Forces into Sudan's army as part of a transition towards civilian rule. Representatives of the Sudanese Armed Forces and the paramilitary RSF signed the agreement on a 7-day ceasefire for humanitarian purpose, according to a statement from the Saudi side. The agreement entered into force at 9:45 p.m. local Khartoum time on 22nd of May, 48 hours after the signing. But fighting has continued in some areas, with both sides accusing each other of breaking the agreement. A report published by the International Organization for Migration on Wednesday shows that the fighting in Sudan has forced over 1.3 million to flee their homes, including nearly 320,000 refugees. It's time now for the sports news.
Sports news.
India have lifted the Kava Women's Volleyball Championship with straight sets victory over Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan proved no match to tough Indian girls who dominated the final at the covered hall played earlier today. India won the first set 25-15. Kazakhstan put up a better performance in the second set, going neck-to-neck, but they lost the set 25-22. India also dominated the third set, giving no room for Kazakh girls to make a comeback as they won the third set 25-13. Meanwhile, Nepal have finished third at the Kava Women Volleyball Championship. In the match to decide the third place today, Nepal defeated Uzbekistan in 4 sets. In the match played at the covered hall of the National Sports Council in Tripureshwar, Nepal conceded the first set, losing 20-25. Following the early debacle, Nepal made a strong comeback into the match, pocketing the next 3 sets to come third in the 8-nation tournament. Nepal won the next 3 sets 25-16, 25-15, 25-13. Nepal and Uzbekistan were beaten semi-finalists as Nepal had gone down to Kazakhstan in 5 sets, while India had thumped Uzbekistan in straight sets.
Savandar spike सँगै नेपाल 25-13 को जित नेपाली टोली हर्षित काभा वुमेन्स भलिबल च्यालेन्ज कप 2023 को नेपाललाई.
That's all for the moment. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.